Saved My Life, Chapter 23. The Royal Oak sank. She was a Royal Navy battleship. She was torpedoed by a German submarine while anchored off the coast of Scotland, and 833 of the over 1,200 men on her died. We heard about it on the radio, which we listened to most nights. The next Saturday, Susan decided to take us to the movies. It was the first time Jamie and I had ever been. We sat down on the plush seats, like our purple chairs at home, and before we knew it, the whole wall in front of us had become a giant moving picture. Music played, and a man's voice started to talk about the war. I'd thought we were going to watch a story, not stuff about the war. Other than the silly posters and the sandbags that lay piled near some of the road intersections, you'd hardly know there was a war. Hadn't been any bombs. But now here was a picture of an enormous ship rolling onto its side while black smoke poured out of holes in its hull. The picture was big and so terrible, and it got worse when the solemn voice talking about the Royal Oak said that over 100 of the dead were young boys. I looked at Jamie sitting on Susan's other side. "I want to go home," I whispered. "Shh," Susan said. "The newsreel will be over in a minute. Then they'll show the story." "I want to go home," I said more loudly. "Don't start," Susan said. "Don't start," Jamie echoed. I didn't. But I plugged my ears and I shut my eyes, and I stayed that way until Susan nudged me to let me know the story picture was starting. Even then, I couldn't quit thinking about the burning ship and the boys that died. I had nightmares from the pictures. Jamie wet the bed, but he always did, every night still. I had dreams of fire and smoke and being tied to my chair, my little chair in our flat at home. I couldn't walk and I couldn't move, and I screamed. Jamie woke and cried, and Susan came at a run. "So, that was a little too overwhelming?" Susan said the next morning. She looked tired and cross, but she usually looked cross in the mornings. I avoided her gaze. I didn't know what she meant by overwhelming. "A little too much?" Susan said. Of course it was too much. It was 833 men too much. Susan sighed. "Next time we go to the movies, we'll wait in the lobby until the newsreel's over. I assume that the radio's still okay?" I nodded. The radio didn't come with pictures. Jamie told Susan his teacher still thought he had the devil in him, and because of that, we had to start going to church on Sundays. "Of course you haven't got the devil in you," she said. "But if you go, it'll give the gossips one less thing to talk about. Besides, I've been feeling guilty about neglecting your religious education." She made us go, but she didn't. She went the first time only, to show us how you had to sit in the pew and stay quiet, unless there were singing or words to say, in which case we still sat quiet because we didn't know the songs or the words. A man up front read stories and then talked for a long time, and Jamie got in trouble for kicking the pew. That's what the benches were called, pews. Jamie thought it was a funny word. The whole next week he held his nose and said, "Pew!" every time he sat down. After the first Sunday, Susan walked us to the church, then took a walk through the village and picked us up on her way back. She said churches and her didn't agree. "You said your father worked in the church," I said, scowling, on our way home the second Sunday. The lady beside Jamie and me had spent the whole sitting down part of the service staring at us, and I hadn't liked it at all. Miss Smith looked tight-lipped. "Yes, my father has made it clear he doesn't think I can be redeemed." Jamie said, "What's that mean, redeemed?" "In my case, being redeemed means changing my evil ways and regaining my heavenly crown. It means my parents don't like me. And yes, my father's still alive. My mother died." "Oh." Jamie threw a rock and hit the fence post half a block away. "Our ma'am doesn't like us either, especially Ada. She hates Ada. Ada's not redeemed." I flinched. Maybe I am now. Maybe now I can walk. Not without crutches, Jamie said. You've still got that ugly foot. Jamie, Susan said, you apologize. Jamie said, but she does. Her foot isn't ugly, Miss Smith said. What a horrid thing to say. And Ada, you've done nothing wrong. Your foot is not your fault. You don't need to be redeemed. I watched the tips of my crutches as we went down the road. Crutches, good foot, crutches, good foot. Ugly foot skimming along in the air. Always there, no matter what anyone said.